Welcome to today's webinar, From Percent Rejects to Parts Per Billion, sponsored by Omnex. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief for Quality Digest and your host for today's webinar. Well, a lot of changes have taken place in quality over the past 40 or 50 years. We've gone from trying to inspect quality into products to actually developing methodologies for keeping defects from getting into our products in the first place. In many industries, we've gone from measuring defects in parts per million to actually parts per billion. But today the challenge is not just low PPM or even PPB, but also design and process reuse that saves new product development time and money. So how do we implement this? Well, that is what today's webinar is going to explore. Before I introduce today's subject matter experts, just a reminder that at any time you can send questions to us using the Q&A box. You can find the Q&A box in the lower right corner of your screen, or if you see a green pull-down menu at the top of your screen, click that and you will see a Q&A button that you can use to click and open the Q&A box. Like I said, send those questions to us at any time. Okay, our subject matter experts today are Chad Keimel, who is the Chief Technology Officer and founder of Omnex Incorporated, an international consulting and training organization headquartered in the United States. Chad has developed and teaches auditor training for ISO 9001, IATF 16949, ISO 14001, and OSAS 18001/ISO 45001, as well as an integrated management systems lead auditor training course where all three standards are combined into a single audit. Chad is the founder of AQSR, a global registrar that routinely provided integrated audits in QMS, EMS, and OHSMS. He is also on the ISO TC 176, ISO TC 207, and PC 283 communities for ISO 9001 2015, ISO 14001 2015, and ISO 45001 respectively. Chad is the author of 7 books and more than 100 papers, including several on integrated management systems. And also joining Chad today is Anthony John, who is the Vice President of Omnex. And I believe, Chad, you are starting us off.
Thank you, Dirk. Welcome, everyone. You know, it's been a long haul for all of us who are working on improving quality. You know, we started with industries being percent rejects, and we went on a belief that certain things will work. And lo and behold, here we are in 2017, and I'm pleased to say many of the organizations we work with, I'll say most of the organizations we work with, are today in parts per billion. So, in fact, let me just move forward to the agenda here. Just to, as I go by these slides, I'll just tell you Omnex is a very global organization. We have offices worldwide. We're happy to say both our training, and today I'm going to be talking to you a lot about software, is available in multiple different languages. All right, let's go right to the, so percent rejects to parts per billion. And, as I develop these topics and talk about them, sometimes I segue a little bit, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about not only moving towards zero defects, but also about what we'll call product development 4.0. We'll explain that to you. So, what brought us to where we are today? And those of you who are not at zero defects, these methodologies I'm going to talk to you at the upfront part of this presentation will take you there. I'm going to talk to you about disciplined new product development, the use of things like FMEAs, the linking between the corrective and preventive techniques to really make sure lessons learned are used for new product development. You know what? It's working wonderfully. Let's talk about it. Then what we'll do is we'll move towards where is product development today, what have we accomplished with these methodologies, in the era of digitalization and quality 4.0 is sort of the next topic, and we'll talk to you about managing these disciplines in terms of phase gate, new product development process. Some people use APQP and PPAP. How do you manage it digitally? Then we'll talk about linkages between certain documents which really produce great results. If you all recall, I don't know if you heard the interview I had with Quality Digest last Friday. I was asked, what is the single most tool that I would give credit to? And I said, design and process FMEAs. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the linkages between them. Third is this linkage between corrective and preventive actions. And then a very hot and important topic, the design and process reuse. All right. So let's move on and talk to you about how did we get here today in parts per billion. Number one, it is the phase gate new product development process. You don't have to do APQP, which you might say is automotive, or aerospace was also doing APQP, but a phase gate new product development process is absolutely necessary with its inputs and outputs between each of these phases. Folks, I'm now going to get a chance to talk to you about all of these documents. It's actually tools between the inputs and outputs of each of these phases. I've already said this. Some of the really important tools are the DFMEA and the PFMEA, which we'll highlight in this presentation. This methodology, so when Omnex started, we were a 32-year-old company now. When we started in the 1980s, we didn't start applying this all to new product development. Well, we started doing it into existing processes, creating around families of parts and families of processes, and this process in manufacturing, linking process flow to PFMEA to control plan to shop floor risk-based controls is tried and true method, a very important process in terms of that yields great results. So the phase gate new product development process, the FMEA, really got us to where we are today. Well, there's a few more tools, but we'll focus on just that today. This, by the way, is the idea of linking system to subsystem to components. Very important, but I'll tell you what. If you asked us what really got us to where we are, it's the last two slides we talked about. This, though, is the future. We're going to be designing better and better products, and this is where Omnex is focusing its attention, and the industry is focusing its attention as we move forward. So this is sort of like the new FMEA, that's coming out of the automotive industry is sort of what this picture is all about. All right. So continuing then, the big deal here is you have to practice this phase gate new product development process and FMEA. You have to do it as close to concept as you can. And the idea is, if you look at this orange curve versus the blue curve, the idea is people who practice this advanced planning and concurrent engineering and the FMEA up front as close as you can when the design is fresh with manufacturing involvement will save a lot of money. That was the promise in which we moved forward 30 years ago, and by God did it yield results. So not only is this whole idea of upfront planning, the advanced planning, also the idea of saving money, and that if you have a $1 problem, it becomes $11,400 if it goes from concept, let's say, to prototype. From prototype to validation, it goes up 10 more times, 11.4 more times. If it goes from the manufacturing, from the design escapes to manufacturing, it goes up another 10 times. If it goes to the customer, it goes up another 10 times. So really, the cost goes up 10, 100 times exponentially. This is why, we save money with advanced planning. So where are we today? I mean, all the work as Omnex, some of you may already know us, we do a lot of training, we do a lot of implementation and new product development, but we're also simultaneously working on software. So let's segue here into where we are going with the idea that if you follow the practices that we're sharing with you today, we're enabling it and making it much more easy for you to do with this digitalization. So what is the idea of digitalization? Here is a quote from McKinsey: creating value at the new frontiers of the business world, creating value in the processes that execute a vision of customer experience and building upon these foundational capabilities. So what I talked to you about the foundational capabilities in terms of new product development, which is a key business process that Omnex is helping go digital. So what kind of innovation can we do? What kind of vital change to your business and your customer can you do with this idea of what we're calling product development 4.0? So we have this quality that, and product development that needs to take this new disruptive technologies like the Internet of Things, big data, mobility, RFID, and mix it with this existing traditional method. So what I'm about to talk to you about is not something in the future. It is something we're doing today, every day at Omnex, in our division, in our company, Omnex Systems. Before I segue and show you that, let's look at some facts around quality management system. Most of you out there, the listeners, are still managing the supply base and internally using spreadsheets and siloed management systems without a lot of collaboration. This is what Product Development 4.0, this is what the tools I'm going to talk to you about today will break. Next, let me just go to the bottom here. So nearly half have observed an increase in quality issues over the past 10 years. And I can tell you this is not the case with those of us who are practicing and using these methodologies that I'm talking to you about today. Third thing, very much you need, folks, pardon me as I get a quick drink of water and clear my throat. So if you want to accomplish, and you want to accomplish great things with these tools I'm talking to you about, you absolutely need top management to understand it and build it around as a strategy. Keep that thought in mind as we move forward. So let's look at another picture. So what you see there in green are the preventive quality levers. What you're seeing on blue are the reactive quality levers. And the idea that product development, digitalization, and quality 4.0 builds off these existing traditional levers in a quality strategy or product development strategy. All right. So when you look and see what we're doing, we have 4 dimensions in terms of data, dimensions in data. And when you say digital, what you mean by that is we have data at the very detailed product level, not just part numbers, we have it to functions, requirements, and characteristics level. Then we have related to it, what are the processes that manufacture it? And we know the process capability to the characteristic level in this digitalization that is happening today. What I'm talking to you about is not anything in the future, it is what we have today. We have the PPM levels. We have the we have it along quality, environmental, health and safety. We have the preventive maintenance records. We have the uptime. So we have that by product, by process, by the dimensions of quality, environmental, health and safety along the base, and we have it by the different entities of the organization. Site 1, Site 2, Site 3, so that we can slice and dice and look at data. So what do we have for each of those sites? We have all these different types of data that might be discrete, that you have it or you don't have it, or it might be digital if we make it digital. That's why going digital has to be a strategy and a mindset that we use the digital data. More on it later. So what we'll do is segue to what we have today. We'll share with you this project dashboard live and tell you what kinds of data can we mine from it very easily today. Then we'll look at the supply chain and look at a supplier dashboard. So not only do we manage our internal, new product development phase gate process, we also can manage supplier, either documents we're going to do between those phases, or the very end that we call first article or PPAP, we can look and see how we manage it. Then what we'll do is take a look at one of those projects that you see on the bottom, one of those projects, and we'll tell you in these three screens all the data we can get in terms of managing product development most effectively. Going back to those foundations I talked to you about in terms of disciplined new product development. Then what we'll do is we'll segue and talk to you about these linked documents of DFMEA, how this helps you and how you can connect up design all the way to the shop floor. And I think, Anthony, that's what we're going to do here. Let's take a quick look at live software, and then we'll come back and talk to you some more and in terms of what we want to do. So what you're seeing then is really, we're going to sign on as Brad Smith. Brad Smith is the project manager. There's a couple of different project managers, and he actually manages 7 programs which has 58 projects in it, all right? So one program may have multiple different parts and part numbers. And what we're seeing here in this dashboard, in this very simple dashboard that every user or the company can customize, the project manager, you can see here that one of the key vital signs for product development is on time. And this is, they're only 42% on time, Brad's projects. And the second dimension we have is what we call quality of the event. Quality of the event is the deliverable was done. What was the quality of that deliverable? We call that quality of the event. And you can see here, the quality of the event is also not so great, okay? It's not bad, but it could be much, much better. And we also track resources in terms of resource usage, and about 61% of the projects are running over resource allocation. All right. What else can I tell you? You can see here all of my today's tasks. There are some tasks which are quite old. Folks, it's a demo database. 58 projects that Brad is managing. His upcoming meetings, which are 0. 7 programs on this side. On this side, we see new risks that he's looking at. Let's go take a look at one of the very high risks, Anthony. So here is a very high risk. Let's note this project number down. This and let's look at one more. Okay. Oh, okay. We'll do that when we get to the supplier. So you can track the project risk on the left-hand side. You can look at requests needing approval from Brad Smith. right? And let's go ahead and either approve or reject it and submit it. You can put your comments in if you want, and you can actually take a look at the document that was attached here very easily and give them your comments. All right, so this is what we see here in terms of the dashboard, and let's go take a little bit of a more detailed look, Anthony. I want to get some detailed data in terms of
so our focus is going to be on the new product development, and one of the project that Brad's working right now is on the sealing system. So let's go take a look at what the sealing system project looks like.
Thank you, Anthony. So we have some canned reports. There's two types of reports you can do in this. We call this the APQP PPAP manager that manages phase gate new product development. And when you look at this, you see each of the phases, and you see are we looking at on time or resource usage?
Right now we're looking at all the phases.
Yeah.
This project has. So we have 5 phases of the new product development according to Brad. So Brad is right now focused on the phase 4 where he needs to understand.
And you're looking at project completion, % on time.
Right.
And you can see here, there you go, about 67% of the projects are green. And this is a formula we set up that it's some of those projects didn't finish on time, and so we gave it. You can create whatever legend and scale you want in terms of that. So one of the things we noticed as we drill down is that which tasks are not done. We can also look and see from the resources how much was planned and how much was used. So not only, okay, go ahead.
So the idea behind this is that for Brad, when he wants to look at a project, he's able to visually see. So this is all about visual management of looking at where your projects are, what's going on time, what's not on time, and also looking at your resource allocation and also a task that's been completed or past due.
So let's also just show how easy it is to track where you are in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. And folks, the color codes are what we set. Can you just go to the right-hand side there? Okay. So you can see here, all the phases run all across horizontally. So you want to just share some of the other charts that you have for this project?
The other thing is that, he could also look at another dimension of this project as in terms of a forecast to say, okay, when is my project going to get done, as I plan these projects. So I would be able to look at a project or a program burn down chart saying, okay, this is how my project was planned over time, where we are today, and I could look at each of those deliverables that are completed versus not completed and what is overdue.
And the key here is we're looking ahead and saying if we burn up the resources at our current rate, we're going to need more resources than we have. And number 2, there are going to be a few tasks which are delayed. All right? So that's what a burn down task is. You want to show any other charts here?
No.
Okay. So there's a number of different charts here. The second part of this is, of course, a business intelligence tool that is tied in that can do any kind of analytics we want on demand. So next what we'll do is we'll take a look at, as we all are interested, we're interested in internal projects. We're also interested in suppliers. So let's go take a look as a supplier manager, looking at it and see what we have in terms of managing our suppliers. So here's Ron Watkins, and Ron is looking at the dashboard of the suppliers. And Ron, if you see, has 68 different projects. Okay? All right. So the same thing that we can see. I'll wait for for you all to be able to see what I'm seeing. So here you're seeing on time for the suppliers, you're seeing the quality of the event, and you're also seeing down below, you can see it project by project by project, right? And so if I click on the right-hand side, I can either click it by one project, or I can click it for a supplier, okay? Because a supplier may have multiple projects.
Right. So let's say the focus today is, Magna received many high priority risks in the project, so as Magma. So I'm going to come in as a program manager, and
let's look at Magma and see how they're doing, Anthony. So if you look at Magma, what do we see?
So Magma has about 10 different projects that they're working for, Brad, and looking at their overall performance, they're only 24% on time. There are a lot of risk associated with it. The specific project that is in the current highlight is the air turbine that they're working on. So I could filter down, narrow down.
Air turbine, the sensors, speed sensors in the air turbine.
Yeah.
So if you click on the left-hand side, you will see each project. If you, without clicking it, you'll see it entirely for all of Magma. And for this project, we have a number of problems with DFMEAs and PFMEAs, and these are the actions that came out of a couple of different meetings we had, all of which we want to track for the supplier. So this is how you can keep a good track of not only suppliers, you can look at each project. So the same sort of a screen that you can see here for Brad Smith, you can see, you went back to Brad? Okay. You can see also for the supply chain. All right, we're going back to Brad, and what we want to do, Anthony, the third thing I wanted to do, so I wanted to show you all how simple and straightforward these dashboards are, and these dashboards can be enabled to any which way you want for your internal projects and for your supply chain, keeping in mind this is where the risk is. Of course, what else do we want to do? Let's go take a look at ceiling system that we took a deep dive on. And when you open up and click it from Brad's, so we had both Brad open and Ron open, if you recall. Don't click anything. You can see what the overall data you can see there on the ceiling system. I click that, and what you do is you see it by each of the phases. All right? Do you see each of the phases? When you look at each of the phases, down below you see another look at the same data by documentation. So you should see it also by phases. If I open up one of the phases, which is phase 2, it opens up also in the bottom. Let's show them all the screens. At the top is a Gantt chart, and in the bottom, so Gantt chart with the start date, schedule date, duration, percent complete, who are the resources, and then you have the Gantt chart on the left-hand side, which you can see more or less of if you move that screen back or forth. Can just want to quickly show that. Okay. All right. And with all kinds of everything that you can do in terms of Microsoft project, you can do here in a web-based environment. Then I may want to see, this is the big deal about new product development. It's all about documentation. So let's open that up. You click that, you'll just see all the documentation by phases. Because we opened up phase 2, we're seeing phase 2 here. And we have these templates that set the input documents, and very easily you can set the output documents, which then a project manager can go in and see very easily. All right. I just wanted to, all right. There's 2 different ways you can attach documents. One is clicking on this, what is that symbol? the clip there. So let's click it on there. It's a symbol that there's an attachment, and we go in and take a look at this attachment, and you see the input documents are a block diagram and DFMEA. Actually, what we've put there is a checklist. We'll show you that later. And the output documents you actually attach. Also, because, remember we talked about having the data digitally. You can actually click the DFMEA and you can actually see it live in those of you who know Aqua Pro, you can actually see it live there. We'll come back to this a little later. We're focusing now in terms of managing the project, so let's go back to where we were, Anthony. All right, so you can attach it, it'll circulate. I'll just tell you, if you didn't want to use this, this is something somebody may want to use if you want to look at your budgeted hours, your actual hours, your burn rate, to see whether you're doing good or not. So what this is actually saying is, if it's green, you actually have extra resources that you're not burning. Your actual rate is 0.34, budget is 0.85, so you have extra time in here that you as a project manager may be able to take. There's a lot in here, but really, for this webinar, let's close this and show the same document from the entire document page. If you had to use this, close it, Anthony. Let's open up the other one. So if you use the documentation page, let's open it up. And is it only because we only opened that one?
Yeah, you're only looking at.
Can we look at all of it? I just want to show them all of it. Okay. So let's look at all of it. And remember the prepare block diagram. Let's go open up and let's look at these. So you can look at it here also, but you can see it in a holistic viewpoint. Let's click it. And what we really have here as an input document is really the checklist to be used when you submit the block diagram and the DFMEA. Let's go ahead and close it. This also could have been a live link, and you could actually take any form that we're showing you that's in Excel or Word, and you actually can make it all digital. Of course, you have to decide what you want to go digital. There's no cost to it other than the programming cost and then the inputting cost, but then all kinds of data is available for you to use. All right, so in a nutshell, this is what the tracking of the projects. Let's just quickly click and show them how risk is shown, Anthony, for the project. We saw the risks earlier from Brad as part of the command center, but when the teams work on it, this is where they actually attach it right either to the deliverable or they attach it at the project level for the project. Okay? So there is preventive action you can take, contingency action in case it happens, what we're going to do, and you can take a look at the before and after risk. Okay, let's close that. And there's a lot more we can show you, but this is good enough, and sometimes this is all you need in terms of doing a great job managing new product development in a systematic and disciplined manner. With this, the second part of what I wanted to talk to you about going to zero defects, other than disciplined new product development, is the linkages and the FMEA document. So let's go to the Aqua Pro that we had opened earlier. On the left-hand side are all the different products. You click Sealing Systems, as we did earlier, and you click the bottom there for Design FMEA, and the Design FMEA opens up. The Design FMEA is linked hand in hand through the corrective and preventive action to the test plan that is sometimes called the Design Verification Plan and Report. If you can click that, you'll find out that this is partially filled out. You have the same function requirements, design controls, the standards for the testing, and then the acceptance criteria and whether we passed or failed. All right. So we actually, at another part, we actually have a dashboard that checks if all the tests have passed or failed. And if they failed, of course, you can come back and make a management decision that you think it's okay to do and override the fail based on data. And then, of course, you can also, based on the test stage, you can sort it by the different phases of a new product development process. But the big point here, if you go back to the Design FMEA, is the design FMEA automatically links with the DVPNR, and then functions and requirements can be rated, and this rating of characteristics. So let's look at which one shall we focus on for them to come back and look at shoulder length. So shoulder length is attached to this function called water sealing to friction flange, which we rated as an important characteristic function, and we rated a KPC for shoulder length, and which then is immediately populated to the manufacturing site because it's a web-based package. When they pick it up, when they pick up the process flow, they will see that the shoulder length that we have highlighted for in operation 20 is a KPC. So this is how you can link and keep everything linked within the organization. The other important thing is the process flow is linked to the process FMEA, which is linked to the control plan, which is linked to the work instructions. So why don't we make a change here to the process flow? Let's call it 40B or 30B or something, and let's just show how that's changed. And folks, we could change not just the operation number, we could change gauges, characteristics, anything else. And you can see here, it's a big deal, by the way, that when you change the process flow, the FMEA changes. And when the FMEA changes, let's call it 40C now, that the control plan changes. So let's go back and look at the control plan. Folks, this could have been a characteristic, it could have been a gauge, and you see 40C has changed the control plan. Now when you go back to the process flow, you'll see the process flow now says 40C also. All right? All right. So the linkages between the documents, can we go pull up a work instruction? All right, we haven't set that up, so that's okay. But you can have a work instruction, you can have a check sheet. Those of you who know Honda know that they have a different form called PIC-QCT forms, which also the software has in place. Let's just tell them a couple of things about formats. Very important for us because the data is in actually a SQL database. Can you go open up the formats? To just show that you can set it up in any format you want. Any different customer format, the same data can be pulled in multiple different formats. Can you pull this up in a GM format? You'll see a different format. Similar but different. So that's the power of formats and the idea that data can be seen any which way you want. So with this, let's move on then back to the PowerPoint, Anthony, and we'll come back a little bit later. Let me pause here, Dirk, to see if people want to write some questions down.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Jed. Yeah, I see a couple hands came up. If you do have questions, send them to us using the Q&A box in the lower right corner of your screen. You might see a Q&A box down there, or if you don't see it down there, you might have a green drop-down menu at the top of your screen. If you click on that green drop-down menu, you should see a Q&A button. If you click that, that'll open up the Q&A box, and you can send us some questions. Chad, I just wanted just to kind of connect the dots here real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
So everything that you've been showing us here, which is an example of kind of a digital way of tracking all this, is what you're saying is that by having all this data available to you, via a web application, digitally, all tied together, is this what helps us get a better view into our process, and then that in turn leads to us being able to reduce the amount of rejects that we're getting into our system?
So two things I'm trying to say, Dirk. One is that these methodologies we're talking about are the methodologies that have helped Omnex customers go towards zero defects. In terms of parts per billion, I'm considering zero defects. or very darn close to zero defect. So that's one of the things I'm saying. The second thing we're saying is having these things, these tools, really helps you get there fast. It doesn't need to take you 30 years. That time there is going to be cut short. And after saying that, Dirk, I'm going to say that in the next section, this is going to help you. You know, if just by doing this and having this data digitally does not immediately take you into the digital era. It has to be a strategy and a plan, but I haven't talked about that yet, okay? So we're setting the ground here for saying all this that we're telling you is there today and is going to help you become zero defects. So that's where we are into the first part of what I want to say to them. I have a little bit more I want to share, and then we'll pull it all together. Fair enough?
Sure, sounds good.
Sure. So here's what I've shown you so far, that there's a project dashboard managing all your projects. Internal, you have the supplier projects in a different dashboard. Now what I didn't show was the internal, you know, the sometimes 18 to 12 documents. We like to look at submissions from customers. The third thing I told you is for each of those projects, you can actually track where different documents are in detail. Of course, you saw that from the dashboard, but you can also dive right in. So these are the three things we showed, and then we showed you the linkages between these different documents, which is very powerful, which I said is the most important tool to get to zero defects. Now, having said that, we already did this. Let's go to the next one, which is a very, very important. We're doing this manually, many of us. It is a link between corrective action, which many of you use the 8-discipline process. Some of you use, you know, a 5-step process. Some of you use a corrective action process. At the end of the day, the FMEA has to, sorry, the 8D or the corrective action, after a product is launched, everybody has problems. But those are lessons learned, and we need to take it back and put it back into the FMEA, and you can do that automatically. We don't have time to show you this, but we'll be happy to show this to you on an individual basis, how the FMEA is then used to drive the next development with the lessons learned. Okay, let's go on. And then you looked at these linkages between the design, the test plan, the process flow, the FMEA, and the control plan. But here is what we did. We said this is not enough. We need to take that from the work instruction finally to an inspection sheet for the operator on the shop floor. Many of us are using paper, but now the ultimate digitalization of the data is entering it directly into sort of a mobile device, okay? So again, this is not the future, this is today. And we can do this, you know, all the different things we've talked to you about is what is possible today. So what does this mean? This, what we're talking about is this existing methodologies and the traditional methods and the data that we collect can be tied in as we're doing with mobility. Can you imagine sensors both driving preventive maintenance and sensors automatically entering data into the mobile device rather than actually typing it in or writing it in? And then, of course, all this data being analyzed in the analytical BI tool that we have. And it leads to innovation. But this innovation doesn't come in just like that. Well, before I go there, let me just tell you what we have showed you. It is real-time monitoring of project data and deliverables. You know, today, the review is done weekly or monthly. But what we're telling you is that it can be done day by day. In fact, you can do it hour by hour. You can do it minute by minute. And we told you we're tracking three things. One is on time, which we can track minute by minute. Second is the quality of the event. The quality of the event needs human intervention to decide if it's good or bad. But if you make it digital, we can give you an estimate of the quality because we'll know if the FMEA is done or not. Is the FMEA partial? Is the operation numbers in the process flow matching the operation numbers? So we can tell you a quick snapshot of the quality without anything, all right? The third is we can track minute-by-minute resource usage. But the question is, Dirk, what are you going to do with this data that we give you? All right. Next is, okay, the quality of the event, all these deliverables. So you can decide which of the deliverables you want to be digital. Soon as you can make it digital, we can evaluate it real time. So what do we offer for you out of the box? DFMEA, test plans, process flow, PFMEAs, control plan, process capability, preventive maintenance, which we didn't show you. All these things are available to you digitally today. But you can decide another 10 different deliverables you want to make digital. And the software will let you do it. But again, let's keep going. So what else can we give you? We can give you process capability, PPM data by characteristic, not just by product, by characteristic, by function, by process, by product, by plant, by customer. We can tell you, what is the PPM level of each characteristic? How does the internal scrap and rework, customer complaints, warranty tie back in to the manufacturing process of each of the product or to a characteristic? So this data is available to you today in Product Development 4.0. But Dirk, automatically doesn't give you a digital strategy. It sets you the base in terms of you have to decide, what kind of, this is just an example to tell you at the very top, you need to set your strategy of what you're trying to accomplish. The data we have, then you have to use that to completely change the way you work. You have to save money in terms of what you do. So let me tell you, this is the picture we started with and said, this is why we all went with advanced planning. With the data we have today, using the data to understand process and products, it can be right to a function level or into an entire product. We can tell you which are the products, characteristics, functions, and requirements which are no problem. We sometimes call them golden parts, which can be reused again and again without doing any more work. So the question is, what % of your new product development is reuse? If it is 25% reuse, your cost comes down 25%. If it's 60% reuse, your cost comes down to 60% of the original cost, which is already good. So as a strategy, design reuse we have out of the box. With the digital data, you decide how you want to use it for your future. So that is the message, Dirk. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it did. I think another question that just occurred to me as you were describing that is, you're saying to reuse design and process documents, and I'm assuming you mean you have a new product coming out. Is there some way you can reuse design and process documents on a new project based on older project?
Let me say from a high level, if you want to reduce the number of problems you have, you need to reuse in your BOM, your bill of materials. We will give you the data that tells you which are the parts with no problem, which are the parts with some problems, but will tell you to the detail level what needs to be fixed there. All right? So number one, you need to have a reuse strategy that says, I'm going to look at the data that I have, and I'm going to use it for developing new products. Does that make sense, Dirk? As soon as you know that, you know which are the ones that you don't have to do any more tests on, any more documents on, because you know they're great. So that immediately brings down your cost of new product development. Testing, design, DFMEAs, PFMEAs. Of course, there's a lot more I want to say, but I won't say because I don't want to make it sound too simplistic, but it starts with a strategy. But we have, of course, design reuse. We actually have design reuse and process reuse is built in to our software. Also built into our software is a lot more than that. It's a lot more that we have in Product Development 4.0. We're waiting for the customer. Okay, you're going to get to zero defects. As I mentioned to you, you're going to get there. We're also going to reduce your cost if you do reuse. But you can do a lot more with what we have in terms of Product Development 4.0. All right, so that's where we are in terms of what we wanted to talk to you about. The solution that we have and we're talking about is the enterprise-wide quality management systems. And it also does integrated management systems because we, at one level, this suite has 3 solutions in it. One is the new product development suite. One is the conformance suite that does 14001, 18001, or 45001, and ISO 9001, or AS 9100, or IATF 16949. And the third one is, of course, our supply chain management suite. So with that, just to tell you a little bit about the suite itself, I just sort of went ahead here. Integrated Management System Suite and the Supply Chain Suite. And so, Dirk, this is what we wanted to talk to you about. Any questions from our audience?
Yeah, we do. We have a few here. In no particular order, is there any data on reduction of engineering changes due to fixing design errors post-product release?
Absolutely, a very, very important indicator. So the problem with change is while you do advanced, quality and advanced planning is that by the product launch, if there's a change by product launch, it's expensive change because tooling will change. And what we'll do, so we do track engineering change. Right off the top of my head, I don't have data, but it is also a big driver of cost. It's a very good indicator in terms of, I don't know if that's driven to zero. I do know once in a while our customers have issues because everybody has issues. But on the whole, when you practice these methodologies, you have to drive that to near zero. So, after a while, you're trying to do detection in your DFMEA, but the second strategy is to see how early can you, catch a problem that you caught later. So very good indicator, and it should be one of the goals of driving to zero.
When we talk about integration of expected requirements with the actual functionality, can we conclude that we are actually maintaining bidirectional traceability of requirements and documents so that at the end we reduce defects using IMS?
That was a complicated question. Yes. I will need you to repeat that once more.
Okay. When we talk about integration of expected requirements with the actual functionality, can we conclude that we are actually maintaining a bidirectional traceability of requirements and documents? Very important.
It's not a requirement in most of the standards. Today, there are new standards called functional safety, or in the software area, there's requirements traceability. So from a system level, we trace requirements to a subsystem level, to the component level, both bidirectionally. And very importantly, the way this works is our idea is that functions have requirements. These are these requirements that flow down. We call them flowing down of requirements, and automatically these requirements get linked to the DFMEA or the system FMEA so that, we don't have to do double entry. And it goes right from a sheet we call voice of the customer, which is also can be thought of as a voice of the contract, all right, to make sure all the requirements are taken care of. Go ahead, Dirk. Next question.
Okay. Can you discuss the applicability of the software to AS9100?
It's absolutely built for AS9145, which is the aerospace APQP and PPAP. And of course, the other part of the suite takes care of AS9100 also. But this part of the suite that I showed you today is about satisfying the aerospace APQP and PPAP, which we were a part of initially as a subject matter expert helping the aerospace industry.
Okay. Okay, this next question is also kind of complicated, and it has some acronyms that I don't recognize. Maybe you do, but let's give it a try. Let's see what happens here. What would be the effort, or the percentage effort, to gather the data versus the cost of product development? So ROM time and any linkages with TRL and MRL. That is, oh, I'm sorry, I see. Oh, I see. ROM time and linkages to technology readiness level or manufacturing readiness level.
You know, one of the documents we actually made digital was the readiness. You know, any kind of readiness. We did one of the documents actually for aerospace, but it can be done. We can very easily make any of the readiness ones ready. You know, and then we can try to correlate that to some sort of a, you know, cost factor, either with resources or some, you know, something else that you want to have, you know, in terms of track, in terms of cost. So those fields can be added in, and then you can look at the correlation between the two. It is again a strategy. This is the kind of strategy you have to decide what you're going to do with that information. Soon as you decide that you have a strategy, you can come inside the software. And by the way, it's only we're talking about a 1 or 2 month effort in terms of, because we have all the tools in there, and you create it, you're agile, you create it quickly, you test it. If it works, you run with it. If not, you go to the next level of digital transformation. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a you kind of touched on a little bit when you were talking about a couple months. This next question here: can you recommend a process to begin integrating the suite into your organization in a way to spread out the cost?
Yes, you know, we have actually, is it 12 modules? We have 12 modules. It's all an integrated suite, really, but we made it into 12 different modules so we can make it easy to implement. Our charge for our implementation team is, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, we just went through a meeting with our entire staff challenging our implementation team to implement 1 module in a month. And I think there was 3 modules in 50 days, 3 modules in 50 days. So if it's a budget issue, you can space it out. If it's a I want everything now issue, you can do it now. There are some lessons learned we have. You know, the suite has got so many bells and whistles. When you're initially starting out, don't try to do it all. All right, because then you think everything is complicated. Our software can let you implement things at your level. So what we did find out is some of the software people were more software experts than subject matter experts who couldn't discern between the two. So it's a lessons learned of a recent implementation that we did, that sometimes you need to back off and only give the company what they need at that moment. It's not the question you asked, Dirk, I don't think, but
yep.
I didn't answer your question. Yeah.
Well, no, I think it does. Basically, you're saying that their question is, can you spread out the cost? And your response basically is, if I can paraphrase, is start out with a few maybe key modules that might be useful to you right now, and then add modules as you go along to kind of build out the functionality. That'd be one way of spreading out the cost.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I've only shown them 2 different modules, and the third one was the inspection control, 3 modules. So it's fairly inexpensive.
Okay. This is also somewhat kind of ties into this whole thing. How does organizational culture play a role in deployment of this approach? And I think I would expand on that and say not only organizational culture, but put another way, how do you sell management that this, the time and money spent in rolling this out is a good thing? How do you sell it?
I'll tell you, we have been fairly lucky in the sense that we have implemented this in so many diverse kinds of, so about 10 years ago, we had a chance to implement this in a large aerospace OEM. Second chance that we had is we implemented it in a train, in an organization that makes trains in Europe, locomotives. We have also done this in actually all of the different windmill manufacturers in the world. We have implemented it in textile companies. We are right now implementing it, can I get the customer's name? In jewelry. It's one of the well-known jewelry companies that you see are using these tools to really make sure they can reduce the cost of new product development and launch. So I think I've said enough in terms of culture, I think. And this last implementation was in a country in Asia. The one implementation was in Canada. One implementation was in Germany. So you have both a industry culture, and then you have a country culture, and then you have a company culture. All of which can be tackled, but number one, as you said, which is not a hard sell. Top management, there's so much enough data now into adopting these tools, it's easy. In fact, we just got done working with a cooler manufacturer. These are coolers where you put your sodas in. And where they wanted to, they've become $1 billion company, and they think they need to have more disciplined new product development.
Somebody wants to know if there are trial versions available.
Absolutely. Please do talk to our, folks who you signed up the webinar at Omnex that will email you things if you're looking for the webinar. And the same folks can put you in touch with our, sales organization that will talk to you about setting you up with a trial. In fact, Anthony, am I right? For both of these, did you actually go to a live? We actually went. Oh yeah, one of those that we looked at was live. The other one was actually inside the computer, but one of them we actually went to a link outside the company that's been set up. So these are fairly straightforward to set up, and there's some cost to it, but let them talk to us.
Okay. So we are at the end of our time here. There were only a couple questions we didn't get to. If we didn't get to your question, I will forward these questions on to Chad. So if we didn't get to your question, I'll let Chad respond to you offline on that. So we're at the end of our time, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot for the presentation.
Thank you, Dirk. And I hope it is sort of open people's ideas of what you can do today and how it sets you up for tomorrow.
Exactly. And also, I believe, Chad, you guys will be sending out like a PDF of the slides. We had several requests that people wanted to be able to look at your slides, so you'll be sending those out within a day or so, I imagine.
Both slides, and also we have taped this.
Oh, and we have exactly.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Exactly, a recording as well. Yeah. All right. So all of you keep your eyes open on that coming from Chad and Miles over there at Omnex. And that is it. So from all of us here at Quality Digest and at Omnex, and Chad and Anthony, thanks a lot. You all have a great day, and we will see you at the next webinar. So long.
Thank you, Dirk.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.